And with that, I am going to pass it on to Donna, who's going to introduce Dr. Joel Sach this evening.
Hello again. So we've been doing these for a couple of years, and we get a few doctors that get so many comments, and people ask, when can we have him back again? And Dr. Sach is one of those people. So we're really lucky that we have him on staff, and that he not only is really good at this, but he really enjoys it. So we're all in for a treat. I will read a little bit about his bio, but there were some key words that were thrown around, and I was just speaking with Dr. Sach about it, but microbiome, intermittent fasting, and there aren't a lot of gastroenterologists that I know that will do like a probiotic cleanse or anything like that. And Dr. Sach is ahead of his time with a lot of this, and certainly ahead of the game. So I'll read you his bio, and it's short, and then he's going to come and give us some really good info. Dr. Joel Sach is a gastroenterology specialist in Tarzana and has over 25 years experience in the medical field. He graduated from USC Keck School of Medicine in 1998. He's affiliated with Providence, Cedars, SInai, Tarzana Medical Center. Dr. Sach's specific research interest within the field of gastroenterology has been in the field of mind-body science, where particular attention is paid to the perplexing interplay of stress on the digestive system. Examples of diseases in this field include irritable bowel syndrome, which Dr. Sach has studied while doing research at UCLA Center for Neurovisceral Sciences and Women's Health. Dr. Sach has presented his research findings in national and international symposia and has received special recognition in this field by the American College of Gastroenterology. It's certainly my pleasure to introduce Dr. Joel Sach. Dr. Sach. Hey, my partner's not as fast. Hang on, Dr. Sach.
Exist and show. You can hear?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. All right. So without further ado, let's get the show on the road. So hi everyone, thank you for taking time in your busy schedules to make time to listen to this. And I wanted to thank all the organizers, Donna, Adam, Dr. Snyder for his kind words, and Providence Tarzana Foundation. It is my pleasure to take part in educating, and I personally get personal satisfaction from being involved in academic exercises such as this. And with that said, let's go ahead and dive into this. So why did we decide to talk about this topic? Well, basically, we are dealing with an epidemic, not only in the United States, but internationally. And what this graph shows us is that even in our beautiful state of California, where we think everybody is lean and ready to go to the beach, as you can see in yellow, it shows that up to 30% of Californians are morbidly obese. And of course, the trend is worse when we get to the Midwest and the South, where up to 35% of the adult population is categorized as being morbidly obese. This is a big problem, and it's a silent killer. And of course, big pharma loves this, because if one is obese, chances are you have high blood pressure, chances are you have diabetes, chances are you have high cholesterol, chances are you have higher risk of heart attacks and strokes. This all means more medications, more stents, more insulin pumps. And as you can see, the cost of healthcare is just skyrocketing. And no one's really talking about how we can prevent these sequelae of obesity, which really, I believe, if educated, we can take a lot of lifestyle choices that could prevent us from going down that course. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to share some data to demonstrate the correlation of excess body weight as it relates to comorbidities, which I'll try to tease out organ system, one organ system at a time. But before we delve in any further, let me just introduce you to the concept of body mass index, BMI, which is universally used as a marker of obesity. And it is internationalized way of, it's basically a composite index score of weight over height. This is a metric system, but I encourage all the participants to actually Google the term BMI and look for a body mass index calculator and put in your height and weight. It could be in feet and inches and pounds, and it'll get you a number. And I want you guys to all see what your body mass index is. You know, I pride myself in having a healthy lifestyle. I surf 4 times a week and try to have a low glycemic food diet. And I myself, I'm categorized as overweight. My body mass index is 25.8, which puts me at the overweight category. And as I was preparing for this talk, I have to kind of try to listen to myself and take some additional steps to put myself down in the normal range, because it does have consequences for my overall health. So when I see patients in the office, I'm a gastroenterologist, so we usually deal with the gastrointestinal issues. So in my field, the way obesity affects my field is in the liver aspect of things. You know, the liver disease, fatty liver disease is the leading cause of cirrhosis in America. Now that we've treated hepatitis B and hepatitis C, we have antiviral therapy for it. Now, fatty liver is the leading cause of cirrhosis, which is one of the reasons for orthopic liver transplantation, which is still ongoing, and what their #1 cause is fatty liver. We are dealing increasingly, in my 18 years of practice, I'm seeing more and more patients with pancreatic insufficiency, just because we're gaining weight, we're getting bigger, it's exhausting our pancreas's digestive enzyme capacity to handle it. And then we're throwing medications at patients with pancreatic enzymes to help them with the digestive consequence of having pancreatic insufficiency. But the corner line etiology of the problem in obesity is inflammation. Obesity is linked with inflammation, and inflammation itself is the core cause of a lot of chronic illness. High blood pressure is linked to it. Lung disease is linked to obesity. High cholesterol, heart attacks, strokes. We're seeing more and more dementia in younger patients. And if you graph the incidence of obesity and plot it against incidence of dementia, you will see a direct correlation. But let's look into the data a little further. Don't take my word for it. This is data from American Heart Association. What you can see here is the incidence, and the y-axis, you can see the incidence of heart failure in this category as you go from normal weight to overweight in black, and obesity in blue, and severe obesity in red. And you can see a direct increased correlation. As we gain weight, our heart failure incidence increases, and same is true for coronary heart disease, and same is true for stroke. But if you look at the overall cause mortality in the United States, there is another direct correlation. I mean, these are powerful slides. This was published in The Lancet, which is a very reputable medical journal. It's what we call a meta-analysis, which is they took 239 published studies and they plotted incidence of all-cause mortality, basically death rate, and they plotted it against the body mass index. And as you can see, as we go up on the x-axis in the body mass index category from normal in the green, as we go higher with body mass index of 30 and 35 and 40, we see direct correlation in increased mortality. In my field, we talked about fatty liver being the cause of cirrhosis. I myself, before I lost the 20 pounds that I did, I had fatty liver. And the only, you go on the internet, you type in fatty liver, there's a bunch of snakes oil salespeople trying to sell you all kinds of concoctions, liver cleanse, and you can find a variety of things that are sold on the internet. Don't believe any of that. The only thing that helps with fatty liver is actually weight loss. Now, when I went to medical school, this term diabesity was not in the vernacular, but as we have been dealing with the history of rising obesity rates, we are actually seeing increased risk of diabetes as well. So now the term going around is called diabesity. And this is a nice historical trend published in JAMA. It shows, from 1990 to 2000, as we can see the mean body mass index of our American citizens going up with time, we see a similar trend in diabetes. In fact, I was talking to one of my old professors who was telling me that type 2 diabetes was essentially non-existent in the 50s. So it's a byproduct of, as we gain weight, we get all these comorbid conditions, which again, pharmaceutical industry loves. Now, this is something that majority of Americans, when polled, were not aware of, the link of obesity and cancer. In my medical education, I wasn't made aware of this, and this is kind of surfacing now. And there are 12 cancers that are directly linked to obesity, starting from the oropharynx, the mouth oral cancers, pharyngeal cancers, esophageal cancer, breast cancer in postmenopausal women is linked to obesity, liver cancer, kidney cancer, stomach, colorectal cancer. I mean, there's an increased incidence, unexplained incidence of colon cancer in younger individuals, which is one of the reasons why American Cancer Society lowered their guidelines for colonoscopies from what used to be 50 years of age now to 45. And this is when you tease it out, you see that obesity is a comorbid correlate. I found this slide to also be illustrative of what I talked about earlier. When you plot body mass index in the US in the 1980s, you see that mostly, obesity was less than 10 to 15% of the population. But 30 years later, we see everyone, this is published in 2021, the rates are, in excess of 25 to 35% morbidly obese in the United States. Now, you think this is bad, you should look at our childhood obesity epidemic, which probably needs another discussion, another thought, because that's really the sad part of what we see as a trend. So the question is, are we doomed? Are we going to annihilate ourselves by just becoming less conditioned, more obese, and have more cancer and other comorbidities that we talked about? Well, here we're going to switch gears to go towards, treatment options, and there is light at the end of the tunnel, provided we are educated and informed. So I think what is astounding is that not enough money is going into education. Our educational system is broken, and we all know it. They're teaching our kids all the wrong stuff that's not relevant for their life skills. Unfortunately, our education is stuck in 19th century, but that's another discussion for another day. But we do need to teach our kids how to eat properly. Most of us don't know our media are covered by marketing, which is by the food industry, which is food politics is such a big part of how our food pyramid used to look like, with the agricultural industry influencing the FDA and coming up with this very bad pyramid, which was around when I was in medical school. Basically, the base of the pyramid was carbohydrates. And we now know that that's the problem. That's the direct reason why we have more obesity, is that we're consuming more carbs, more sugar. And this is, another representation of historical fact of how we became more obese over time and how our diabetes incidence increased in concordance. Sugar is the devil here. We have put sugar in, in all our foods and snacks because the industry knows that if you have sugar and if you have carbohydrates, you'll be more hungry. And if you're more hungry, you'll order more food and you'll consume more beverages. And this has been proven already in the rat model, where you have rats or mice that are addicted to cocaine, and you give them a choice to go for cocaine versus sugar. They selectively go for sugar, and that's a problem. And this is what our kids need to know about. So there are several diets that are around. Historically, they've been going around. Diets come and go. They're all fads that come and go. But one of the things that had some physiologic basis that actually does work in fighting weight gain and obesity is the concept of low carbohydrate diet. And Dr. Atkins was in the 60s. He was one of the pioneers. And he basically took the pyramid upside down. And instead of putting carbohydrates at the base of the pyramid, he put protein and fat actually at the base of the pyramid. There's some controversial issues with that. We're learning that animal fat is probably not as good for us as plant fat, but the concept of having low carbs is actually a true concept, and Dr. Atkins was a pioneer in this field. And he was going against the industry at the time. He was fighting with all the influencers in Congress, which were backed by the food and beverage industry. So intermittent fasting is what I actually recommend as the best non-pharmacologic way to combat obesity. And there is a lot of science behind it. It's not only good for weight loss, but there's data that shows that intermittent fasting is helpful in decreasing all-cause mortality. And in anti-aging literature, you will see that the animal models that were intermittently fed, I should say, they had longer longevity, and they also had independently, they had lower rates of cancer. You see, eating is oxidative stress, and intermittent fasting allows for our bodies to self-prune. And what I mean by that is, we know cancer cells and precancer cells love sugar because that's their best easily digestible, metabolizable food source. And when one goes into fasting state, their body's sugar drops, and their precancerous cells can no longer survive on ketones, which is the other currency for energy when we are deprived of sugar. And so that's thought to be one of the mechanisms for decreased cancer rates when one intermittently fasts. Now, if you go on the internet and Google intermittent fasting, you will find different variations. In my recommendations to my patients who are interested or enrolled in our weight loss program is to find something that is practical, is doable, it's easily integratable to their way of life and lifestyle. And I've found over the years that the 8-16-hour fasting regimen works best. So what does this mean? This means that one selects an 8-hour period that they eat during those 8 hours, but outside of the 8 hours, they're only allowed water as well as non-caloric beverages, preferably tea and coffee that's black. We love coffee because it has anorexian properties, which means that it kind of kills appetite. And it's also, in many studies, it's shown to improve cognitive function, which would be great. So black coffee, I highly recommend. And usually the strategy I give most of my patients is, you wake up in the morning, start your day with, double shot of espresso, and put no sugar in it. That will probably keep you full as long as you don't add sugar and cream to it. And you can start eating at 12. And most people find 12 to 8 p.m. to be a practical way to engage in intermittent fasting. So those are their 8 hours. They can eat during those 8 hours. There's no restrictions. But I always tell them, try to stay away from processed foods and the sugary food. And obviously you don't want to have like donuts during those 8 hours. But other than that, there's no dietary restrictions. You go about your day, you fit all your calories within those 8 hours, and 12 to 8 p.m. seems to work best. And then after 8 p.m., we say just water. And I find it to be doable if one is interested in avoiding medications for weight loss. And it doesn't have to be those 8 hours. People have different lifestyles. Some people do 9 to 5. Those are 8 hours. And after 5 p.m., they stop eating. And you can get the idea. Any 8 hours, the idea is that you have to be fasting for the 16 hours. And the physiology behind that is after 12th, 13th, 14th hour of fasting, the body runs out of sugar and it is forced to go through a metabolic change. You change gears, and your body's metabolism goes towards breaking down fat. It's called lipolysis, and that's great. When you do that, then the precancerous cells die because they're not getting sugar. They're getting ketone bodies, and weight loss occurs during those fasting hours beyond hour 14, 15, 16. So this is another way of depicting it. You eat for 8 hours and you don't eat for 16 hours. You just have water, black coffee, and black tea during those fasting hours. Now we're going to switch gears and talk about pharmacotherapy, because there are, as much as I'm against medications, at some point there's a need for them. And I oftentimes use medications to help people lose the weight. And when they start feeling better, then they pay more attention to choosing appropriate lifestyle decisions that will help them maintain the weight. Because most fad diets, you lose the weight and then you stop it and then you regain all the weight. And so in our clinic, we try to arm our patients with knowledge about, imprinting these lifestyle choices as part of their lifestyle, so they can live with them and hopefully not depend on medication. But historically, going through medications, the next few slides, I'm going to go through some advances in our pharmacotherapy because they are effective. And lately, as I'll share some data with you, the newer medications are blockbusters. I mean, they do a great job. They were intended for diabetes, but then they found out they actually help with weight loss. And now the FDA is going through, processes to approve these medications, which I'm going to talk about, for non-diabetics. But historically, some of the people in the audience may remember fen used to be in the market. Fen was a combination of this medication, phentermine, but it was coupled to another medication which was bad, and fen obviously, for good reason, was pulled off the market because the other fen was causing valvular heart disease, and so it was appropriately pulled off. But phentermine has been around since the 50s and the 60s, and I actively use it in my patients. Obviously, every medication has side effects, and I'm not saying that you should go on it, but you should talk to your doctor if they feel comfortable with it. I think it's a time-proven medication that's very inexpensive, and it does a great job not only suppressing appetite, but more importantly, it actually increases metabolism, so one burns more calories at rest. And with my perimenopausal, particularly women whose metabolism changes during menopause, no matter how little they eat, they have a hard time losing weight. So it's not uncommon that I start them on medications such as this, obviously monitoring them for side effects, which I'll talk about. We're very successful in achieving goals with patients and myself together. So we set certain goals and we try to reach those goals, and everyone's goals are different. Obviously, this is obesity and weight is the loaded topic, and honestly, most doctors rather not talk about it because it's a taboo subject, and we don't have enough time during the clinical visit to go and discuss the diet and lifestyle choices. But I was trained in holistic medicine, and so I think that's really a big part of healthcare is to be able to see what people are actually consuming and how they spend their day. This way, when you develop a good relationship, we have a great time reaching our goals together. And unfortunately, that's not a mainstay in current medical care because doctors are not, they don't have enough time. There's a shortage of physicians. They don't have enough time, and it's much easier to just write a prescription. It takes 10 seconds to write a prescription, but half an hour to discuss diet and lifestyle. But anyways, this is one medication that the side effects are it could raise blood pressure, so we monitor the blood pressure of my patients who enroll in the program. Fortunately, I'm happy to report that actually when they lose weight, patients lose weight, I actually unprescribe their blood pressure medications because it directly correlated with weight, the blood pressure is, and as we lose weight, we unprescribe blood pressure medications, which is probably the most rewarding part of my day. And it's not forever. It's just we can try it for a few months, and it gives people a lot of energy. So it's in the stimulant category. So a lot of my executive health patients, they like it because it actually gives them their focus. Just like Ritalin and Adderall are good for ADD, phentermine is in a class of stimulants which actually makes people focus. So a lot of people like that side effect as a good effect, and they use it. Insomnia is a side effect. Palpitations, because it's a stimulant, it could cause heart palpitations. So we in our clinic we go through their risks and benefits, and like every other medication, there is risk and benefit to everything. But the good thing about it is that it's been around for decades. The safety profile is very known. There's no surprises with it, and it's relatively inexpensive. And we actually have a in-office dispensing program for safety reasons that we deploy. Now, switching gears, the new kid on the block is the GLP-1 analog. And without wasting your time about the physiology, you can Google this. But this is an oral medication that's used for diabetes. It's in the group of semaglutide. This is a substance which is called a glucagon-like peptide, GLP-1, which our body naturally secretes. But when we are obese, we don't secrete enough of it. So we can supplement it with exogenous sources such as with medication. And not only does it treat diabetes, but it actually helps people lose weight. So as they did the clinical trials, they found that semaglutide could be marketed for weight loss independent of diabetes, which was its own its original indication. Now, the injectable kind is once a week injectable. Ozempic is also the same molecule, semaglutide, but this one is once a week injection, and there is a lot of variations. The pharmaceutical industry tries to monetize everything, so they came up with another compound called Wegovy, which is essentially the same thing with a different brand name that they got approved for treatment of obesity independent of diabetes. But the new kid on the block is Mounjaro, and I'm personally very impressed by its efficacy. This is a molecule called tirzepatide, and it comes in different doses. This is not only a GLP-1 analog, but it also works with another molecule called GIP. So it's a dual action. And honestly, the FDA trial that was published in New England Journal of Medicine, I was very impressed. Over 2,500 patients when enrolled in a double randomized placebo-controlled study, which is the best rigorous kind of clinical trial, most scientific and robust from a statistical point of view. And they showed remarkable weight loss. Of course, it was done in the diabetic population. But if you take away the diabetes part and just look at the weight loss benefits, it was up to 20% total body weight loss, which, with bariatric surgery, our bariatric surgeons with gastric bypass and sleeve gastrectomy, they quote numbers of like 25% to 30% at best weight loss. But this is a once a week subcutaneous injectable that the patient does at the comfort of their home, and it achieves up to 20% weight loss, which is remarkable. And if you couple this with lifestyle changes, you can have sustained benefits that I'm very excited about. And again, this was originally marketed for diabetes, but now they're trying to market it for weight loss, probably under a different name. And the ongoing clinical trials are ongoing. So with that, I'll end the talk. I'm sure you guys have questions, and I'd like to, I think we all learn more when we interact in a direct question and answer session. And I'll give it away to Donna and Adam.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sach. We really appreciate this very informative presentation. And I definitely have some questions for you that have come up. So I'm going to start here by finding those questions. So the first question is, what else raises blood pressure if you are not overweight?
So yeah, that's a good question. And that's another topic, but 95% of the high blood pressure is due to what we call essential hypertension, which essentially means we don't really have a cause. But when we get older, our elasticity of blood vessels kind of diminishes. And what happens is, as the elasticity diminishes, then the pressure inside a vessel increases, and all our blood vessels are conduits. Like, it's a plumbing issue. And Bernoulli's principle in physics is that as you decrease elasticity, you increase pressure. So it's a senescent change, which means as we get older, it's a stiffening of the arteries is what happens. But obesity is definitely a comorbid condition.
So Dr. Sach, it's interesting you were talking about these diabetic medications. For instance, but it's interesting because insurances are approving some, but they're not approving others. Like, for instance, Ozempic is getting declined, I've been hearing, but Wegovy is getting approved by a lot of insurances. Do you know why that is?
Yeah, right. So this is basically the battle between the monsters. It's the pharmaceutical industry going against the insurance companies. Insurance companies obviously want all about savings, and these drugs are expensive, and clearly they don't want to pay for them, but they are effective. So it's big pharma against big insurance, and the patients are stuck in the middle. And the FDA and our senators are all in the pockets of the industry. So God forbid government is going to come to help. But so these are marketing strategies. It's the same molecule. Ozempic and Wegovy are the exact same molecule, but they're just branded different for insurance reasons. Because and I think it's going to change because the momentum, these medications, the latter ones that I discussed, are so effective that I think it's going to be a public outcry to get it covered. But in essence, the insurance companies are going to turn the cost into the consumer, and that's why basically premiums every year. You know, your birthday comes and say, congratulations, happy birthday. You're going to pay another $300 a month. And this is the biggest driver of increased premiums are actually drug costs.
There's a question here. How do you decide which medication is right for a patient?
So yeah, this is when you need the patient-doctor visit. It's a very nuanced question. There's so many factors. This is the time that if you're interested in starting a new path, you call your doctor and you say, look, I want to talk about this, and you make it the topic of the discussion. You like the only reason you're making the doctor visit is to address that. And then they have all your conditions, they have all your medications, hopefully they know you have a relationship. And I would suggest the first step is to actually make a dedicated visit to discuss this topic with your primary care doctor. Now, some doctors are more likely to help you with this, some doctors aren't, but I can tell you that majority of doctors, their heart is in the right place, and they are interested in improving outcomes. But there's so many different hurdles. But when you make the call and you say, this is what I want to talk about, and the secretary takes that as the reason for the visit, then the doctor will make time. If you're interested, I think that's the best way to go about it.
How much overweight do you have to be in order to be a candidate for these medications?
So insurance has their own criteria. I have my own criteria, but who cares what my criteria are, because these medications are expensive. So like the phentermines of the world, they are affordable, they're doable, and so we don't need insurance approval, because like to be part of that program, for example, for my program, it would be like $100 a month. It includes the medications which are actually given in the office, and we're monitoring the blood pressure. So it's an MD supervised program, which I think is not unreasonable. Thinking Starbucks coffee is like $6, so you dedicate $100 a month, and you're under the doctor's supervision, and so the insurance part is out of the equation. So it's kind of affordable. We have a lot of patients who are happy with that. But to answer the question, these GLP-1 analogs, for now, majority of them get, insurance denies them, and then the cash price is about $1,000 a month. I have some celebrities in my practice that are not diabetic, and they just want the prescription. They go buy it cash, which has its own ethical problems, because now it's not available for the diabetic patients. I mean, there was a shortage of Mounjaro, and you might have heard about it in the news. There's a shortage of these medications because non-diabetics are just paying out of pocket to get them to lose weight. But I think with time, those problems are gonna sort themselves out.
How common is it for IBD patients to also develop arthritis?
IBD patients is very common, and the common theme is inflammation. And so we have an inflammation, again, obesity increases inflammation. So yeah, very correlated.
How do you feel about sugar substitutes?
I think they are just as bad as regular sugar. Again, it's branding and marketing, but all the studies show that if you take fake sugar, the same brain centers that light up with sugar light up with fake sugar, which means the appetite stimulating effects of sugars, which we know about, are seen in the fake sugars as well.
And that's even, does that include monk fruit and my favorite in the green packet?
Green packet, stevia, yeah. So yeah, if it's sugar, if it's sweet, our brain loves it. The pleasure centers in the brain love it. They don't discriminate between manufacturers, and they are going to increase your appetite.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm just reading these questions. Can you get the same benefits from intermittent fasting if you choose a 12-12 plan or a 14-10 plan?
Yeah, you can. It's probably, the more fasting you do, the better. 12-12 I don't think that's practical. And there you see all these variations on the internet. You're gonna see all these, people, and they self-program. But the more I look at the literature, it looks like the body needs to be in a fasting state a minimum of 14 hours, preferably 16 hours. So that leaves 8 hours for feeding. So that's what I tell my patients, and it seems to work best for them.
Part B of that question is the fast truly broken if you add a small amount of cream to your coffee?
100% broken.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the most common thing I hear in my patients. They say, "Hey, doc, I'm not losing weight. I'm doing the intermittent fasting. What's happening?" And sure enough, with a lot of probing, they admit to taking just a little something. So just a little something during the fasting state basically does not allow your body to make that gear change we talked about. You shift metabolism, but if you cheat, you have a little bit. And I'm not judging here. I'm just telling you physiology. The reason for lack of success is not being diligent about being completely fasting. If you add anything other than black coffee, black tea, and water, then it's not truly an intermittent fast.
So I think the next question is going to be obvious. Is keto coffee allowed in intermittent fasting, adding heavy cream and ghee? So the answer would be no.
Yeah, so that's the concept of low carb helps, and probably if you do low carb during the fasting hours, better than doing carbs, right? None of this is all or none. There is, and it has to be practical. So, and I tell my patients, look, you don't have to do intermittent fasting every day if you can't do it. Be honest with yourself. I have a lot of patients who do it during work days and they take a break during weekend. So I say 1 day of intermittent fasting a week is better than none. So, and if you're gonna break it, if you're gonna, if you're gonna do something during your fasting hours, it's probably better to do the ghee and not the carbs.
Once you go off the medication, do you gain the weight back?
Yes, and that's true about anything. That's why the core of this is awareness about lifestyle choices. Having said that, there's a lot of people who are just at a metabolic disadvantage, right? So perimenopausal women are a classic example. The hormones change, their metabolism changes. They do all they can to watch their diet, and they don't lose weight. So you need a little booster. And we do live in an age where pharmacotherapy is available, and we can use it when we use it sensibly. It's not a bad thing necessarily.
If anybody else, thank you, Dr. Sach. If anyone has any questions, if they want to unmute and ask, you can do that, or raise your hand, or put anything else in the chat room. Would you recommend using a continuous glucose meter when starting keto to monitor your sugar?
Yeah, data is always good. So, and it actually, these days we have these continuous glucose monitoring, which are awesome. I think they enable our diabetic patients to actually see where the sugar is. And yeah, it gives you data points, you can monitor it. It's great.
Okay, I'm gonna open it just a bit in case anybody has a last minute question.
Dr. Sach, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
My name is Veronica. I'm a nurse at Tarzana. So I have a quick question. So my family has fatty liver, like mostly the boys. What are the chances of like our kids, and like it's hereditary, and I'm okay so far, but like there's like 7 siblings and all the boys have fatty liver.
Yeah, like I said, I had fatty liver. It's unfortunate. How is their body mass index, you think? Do you know?
Well, they're fine. But because there was like a younger age when they were diagnosed, so they weren't overweight then.
Yeah, I know, and there is this subset of fatty livers that we call them the skinny fatty livers.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of metabolic things. Is their cholesterol okay?
Yeah, I mean, high cholesterol does run in our family.
Right.
That's why we're constantly checking it. That's a company knew that, to check
Right.
the
Have you
fatty
checked
liver.
have you checked their cholesterol? Do you know?
Yeah. They're checking their cholesterol. Everything seems to be normal.
Okay. Yeah, so the fatty liver sometimes predates onset of diabetes and high cholesterol. And now that we're doing ultrasounds more frequently, we're picking it up at earlier ages. But talk to the pediatrician and educate your kids about importance of diet. And people think that fat is bad for fatty liver, but actually sugar is bad for fatty liver. And so but this is a nuance. I mean, there's a lot of metabolic reasons for it, and just talk to the pediatrician. Bring it up as a topic. Fatty liver is about 30% of the population. And
Yeah,
probably
so I
30
know it's so like seems like everybody has it. We start talking about it.
It's an epidemic, yeah, and it's the leading cause of cirrhosis that we talked about in later life. But if you started as a kid, increase, it's noteworthy, and it needs to be so they need to like process food and snack. They just need to be educated. Maybe start with a dietitian and like take the whole family.
I know. I
Go
know.
ahead.
Right? Another question that I have, Dr. Sach, for the BMI, like how realistic is it to go to that normal BMI? I mean, that stuff like when you were in high
Not
school.
easy. I told you.
I mean, does that even? I mean, like, is it even doable? Like, I would
It's
have to be like
doable.
anorexic to
It's
be in a normal BMI.
it's doable. So why don't we all go online, get the online calculator for body mass index, calculate our own body mass indexes, make sure we're not above 30. If we're above 30, that's morbid obesity by definition, and it's a loaded statement as I shared with you guys. So if you are in above 30 range, just make a call to your doctor and do it tomorrow, and just have a path forward. If you're between 25 and 30, I myself am between 25 and 26, which is in the overweight category. And, I pride myself in surfing 4 days a week, intermittently fasting. But you're right, it's hard. But just try to, trend towards normal is better. So find the best you, is what I tell my patients. Don't compare yourself to anyone else. Compare yourself to yourself, and try to drop your body mass index by 2 points. Now you're armed with the calculator, you can kind of see where you would be if what your goal would be to drop your body mass index by 2 points, and you would have achieved quite significant results with that, and set that as your initial goal.
Yeah, and thank you, Dr. Sach. It's just, I think we've been suffering from that since we were kids about the regular BMI.
You're right. We're all in this together. We're all in this together.
Thank you, Veronica. Those were great questions. Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a question for the doctor.
Great.
Hi, Dr. Sach. It's Joel Fox. How are you?
Hi, Joel. What's happening? I like your name.
I know you copied it. The question I have for you is, how do you know if you have a fatty liver? Is there a measurement on a test or something that says you have a fatty liver?
Right. The easiest way is to do an abdominal ultrasound, and just ask your doctor, say, I want to know if I have fatty liver, and they'll order an abdominal ultrasound. It's a very non-invasive test. There is no radiation, and it's relatively inexpensive.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Anyone else? Don't be shy.
I have a question. So, Dr. Sach, I'm curious. So, I used to weightlift, and I developed hiatal hernia, and but if I were to, I definitely need to lose weight. That's for sure. Do you think losing weight would still help with like acid reflux, which is what I have? Even though I do have hiatal hernia.
Yeah. So the biggest preventable cause of acid reflux is actually weight loss. So we know that as we gain weight, we put more pressure on abdominal organs, which increases the intra-abdominal pressure increases will result in worsening of a hiatal hernia. Hiatal hernia is essentially when a portion of the stomach herniates through the diaphragm into the thoracic cavity, and as we gain weight, that pressure, intra-abdominal pressure, forces the stomach to herniate further into the thoracic cavity. So as my patients lose weight, their reflux kind of gets better.
Thank you.
Great.
Sure.
This was great. If there are no other
I-
questions.
I do have one.
Great.
Dr. Sach, so there, within our blood work, if we get our blood work regular, are there any markers in the blood work that shows a fatty liver?
No. So there's no serological markers for fatty liver. Ultrasound is the best way. There's also these more expensive ways that it's called elastography, but insurance doesn't cover it and it's unnecessarily expensive. The blood test markers, usually what I do to look for what we call metabolic syndrome is hemoglobin A1C, which most of us are probably aware of. It's the average measurement of blood sugar level. It's called hemoglobin A1C, and the lipid panel, fasting cholesterol panel. And if there is any abnormalities in those, chances are you might have some element of fatty liver, which could be proven by an ultrasound. And the treatment of all three of them is weight loss.
Can you prescribe the abdominal ultrasound, or do I have to go to my primary care?
If you are my patient, I'm happy to do that. If you're not my patient, ask your primary care doctor.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Dr. Sach, real quick, how long can you do intermittent fasting?
So it could be a way of life.
Okay.
And so you have to see how practical it is. So why don't you, I usually tell my patients, select a month that you will dedicate to intermittent fasting and see how you feel. It's a trial run. If a month is too much, try 2 weeks. Always, anything is better than nothing.
Right. Do you still have to sustain like 1,500 calories? I mean, if you're
So
while you're at it?
I don't believe in calorie restrictions because they play mind games with you.
Okay.
So don't do that. Don't count your calories. The studies show that never works. And then when you have an emotional issue, then you just overeat and sabotage the whole thing. So, and that's a human reaction to stress is to consume calories. And so don't just do the best thing. Honestly, we've been doing this for a long time. Just give yourself like a 2-week trial of intermittent fasting, and don't restrict your calories during those 8 hours. Just be normal with it and see what happens. You might be surprised.
I had a quick question.
Thank you, Dr. Sachs. And let me just say thank you to Donna, Adam, and it's the best hour I've had in a long time.
Oh, good.
And I was going to say, I could say something like,
So I thank you, Fred. Thank you, Fred. I do want to say that if anyone's interested in making an appointment, I can send you the contact information for Dr. Sach's office. So
yes, I'm going to have a visit soon.
Right.
I had
Well,
a
thank
quick
you guys for, if there's one, we can take one last question.
Yeah.
I want to say, my name is Candace Fulmer. I wanted to thank Dr. Sach for saving my life.
Oh,
He did. And then I went to the emergency, and Dr. Snyder in his emergency room, I was in and out within like an hour, having a heart attack with a 99% block, and was in and out, and the emergency room staff was fabulous.
oh, I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad we made that call. In medicine, one of my professors said, trust your instincts. And my gut instincts when I saw you in the office was that, man, you should go to ER. So I'm glad it worked out. And this is the moment that we as physicians are really proud. Because remember, I mean, this is a good teaching lesson for the woman in the audience. Heart attacks in women present differently. She presented with digestive issues, and she didn't have the classical heart attack symptoms. And but something told me in the back of my mind that we should be careful. And I'm glad you went, and you were a good patient, and you listened. You didn't go home and have a heart attack at home.
No,
So-
I had no high blood pressure, no cholesterol. I had no signs of it but that indigestion.
Yeah, and I'm glad you made my day. Thank you.
Thank you. You
All right.
saved my life. Thank you.
All right.
The
Take care.
emergency room staff was amazing.
Yes, they
Thank
are.
you.
They are.
Okay, well, I think this has been just a great hour of education for all of us. So thank you, Dr. Sach. And
Thank you for the opportunity.
You bet.
And yeah, appreciate you.
Great. And thank you, Dr. Snyder, if you're still on. I realize this takes a lot of preparation and time for you, so we really appreciate it.
Hey, Annie, how are you?
Hey, all right,
Yes.
good to see some familiar faces.
How are you?
All right, I love you all. Have
We're,
a good one. I
we're,
Thank
gotta run. My wife is
you.
waiting. All right,
Thank
I'll be in
you.
trouble. All right,
thank
take
you
care.
all. You'll get a
Bye.
video tomorrow.
Well, that's good.
Thank you.
The relaxed part especially is good.
Thank you.